Okay, maybe we can do a quick check-in in case you guys have um, interesting questions that we can map out, as well as experiences, either holding space or experiencing the playlists or going a little bit into the study process, either with the past calls or the website. So anyone who would like to sound out, be interesting to spend time with you. Just anything that's top of your head while we're waiting for some people to come in. Hmm. Hmm.
Since everyone's pretty quiet, I might ask a question. I don't know if there's a connection, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Um, so I have MS, multiple sclerosis. I have a few lesions in my brain, and I was just wondering whether there could possibly be any connection between that and my sometimes lack of inner dance experiences. Like I can experience it physically, some like I can feel electricity running through my body and that type of thing. But even when I'm looking at other people, listening to them share, they access different states than me. I feel like I can't get a visual aspect of it, if that makes sense. Like it's more so just physical. Even with your playlists, I'm not moving, but I can feel things going on within my body. And yeah, I'm just, even when I'm like facilitating, I've really only done family and friends. I don't know. It's like I know how to do it, but then it's like I don't know. I don't
Mm.
know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But
it,
I
it,
can do it, but it's like I don't know.
it
That makes
super makes sense.
okay.
I'll say just a little bit because this demands a lot more study space.
Okay.
So multiple sclerosis has something to do with myelination of synaptic connections that goes into more or less an inability to strengthen those connections. And sometimes it's the myelin, which is the white um, cortex, like underneath the gray cortex, that allows electricity and energy in general to travel faster and further than what takes place in the gray area of the brain. And so I would, Linda, like sit with it. It's already amazing that you're having the body sensations. It means that something is happening. So recovery in your case might take, at the very least, like months, maybe 6 months, 5 months. So what I would do is I would experiment more and more with what you can sustain. And I would get interested in the sleeping playlists, primarily because the delta states that happens in slow wave sleep is when myelination happens. So I would go so far as to say that inner dance would help your condition for sure. It's just gonna have to be the organic um type of inner dance. This could actually be a really interesting topic to bring up alongside some of the introductory levels that we can talk about when it comes to music, the brain, the nervous system. I find your question quite relevant, actually. Mm. It pushes us light years ahead based on where we're currently at. Okay, so hi everyone. I hope you're well. I think we're gonna have some more people coming in. The first call is always the small group, which I enjoy very much. And then we have a second call 2 days from now. You're welcome to join that as well. That's like the gigantic group where people from Europe and well, the Middle East and some other parts of the world, that's when they converge. That's when people are more awake. But thank you for being here. I'm more or less in the last day of a 15-day training that we held in Maya. We're leaving tonight to head over to Singapore, where we're going to be holding our first big training in Asia. I haven't done any trainings in Asia in maybe 5 years or 6 years, primarily because of the pandemic and because of our need to support the ongoing movements in Europe where so much is happening. So my mind's really in this explosive inner dance experience and observation where the bodies of different people, like in this current training, there's Australians, South Americans, North Americans, Europeans, and Asians. So yeah, it's making a lot of sense, like what comes together, and there's so much appreciation and feedbacks coming through the space. So welcome to the second month. We're going to be diving a little bit deeper, but at the same time, I feel like we can surface more and conduct more productive work where we can look at things like playlisting, holding space for those who are interested in this, how constructions happen now that we're covering more philosophical and theoretical ground. All right, so we have some themes for the month. We don't have to strictly follow them, but it would be good to stay within the outline just so we can stretch out and pace the the rich content that comprises this thing that we're interested in, the inner dance and whatever you call the energy process that you do. Um, I wanted to go over the mind-body connection. How do we situate a way of studying both the mind and the body together? How had this become separate in the world so that when you take up psychology, then that's quite different from the study of the biological or the neurological. Somehow a lot of that um, is experiencing a convergence where different domains are getting fused. So we're studying it at the same time you yourself, you're experiencing it. You're experiencing your consciousness and maybe even your unconscious. And then you're also experiencing your body undergoing these changes. I want to go into some philosophy slowly. I think we can take our time. There's no rush. We can start with the super simple, super accessible elements. And then when we study how playlists and sessions can be constructed, these need to kind of grow together. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna look at images and maybe we can listen to some sounds today. Um, okay, let's go to the website. I prepared this just 2 days ago. and we recently shared it through the groups. It acts as a simple placeholder for this first week and maybe into the next. I shared two playlists just to do some correlations between the old inner dance constructions and the new ways of constructing the energy. There's actually a lot more constructions, but for the meantime, just putting two out could be good. Okay, I don't know if you have your notebooks out, but I put out a comment section for the playlist, and I got wind of just one. We're lucky. We're blessed to have Jesus being the first one to comment. So maybe let's go over it. I went over it quickly as I woke up this morning. I found that there are good points here that we can use as a starting
Sorry,
ground.
can I just interrupt quickly? I just got a text message from Val. She's in the waiting room,
Oh,
waiting to join. Yeah.
well, let me see. Because I took out the waiting room, people should, yeah, there is no waiting room. So I'm not sure if she's in the right channel. Could
Okay, I'll
you
check. Yeah.
message her? Thank you. Hmm. Okay. Well, all right. Um, let's check if she's in. uh, Yeah, I'm sure she'll make it through. Okay, so let's read his words. After reading the Green Wiki, I wanted to share an experience I had during an inner dance session conducted by Paula using a playlist with known songs. Okay, we can I'll write that down in my notes. Known songs. We hear this a lot being spoken by many, like it's been a life-changing experience, and it takes a while for people to integrate that. I'm not sure what people mean by life-changing experience often, because what does it really mean for a life to change? Does it mean a change in perception, a change in an experience? You know, you had an experience. So let's say, okay, you had an experience and that experience changed your life. Does that change your behavior, your mood? Does that shift your perceptions of the world? And what does it mean to integrate? So I think it's beautiful people are saying it, and it's interesting to bring that into the light. What does that mean? So before starting, I noticed that it was not going to be just another session. So what we take from here is he's done this previously, maybe a lot or a few. And his body felt something, like an exhaustion, a tiredness. Okay, I'm gonna write those then. Tired and surrendered, with little resistance. So there's something in the music that brought about this surrender that came with exhaustion. I want to point something out there. The session began, and after he laid down, the body started to move, but less abrupt movements. And without getting up on my knees, but with a lot of perception. So that means maybe he was standing up before. I'm not sure what that means. And with my hands, like other times, I feel as if I'm moving them close to my body. I can perceive their effect in my body without touching me, as if I were moving air and I could feel it, but it is not air. I know it is energy. So his hands are yeah, moving energies across his body. And suddenly in my head, the phrase, the emptiness is full. You write that down. The empty is full. or the emptiness is full over and over again. And then with my hands, I am moving the emptiness and I perceive the energy moving. I play from one hand to the other. I even cross my body with it and I receive it in the other hand. And I continue to notice a full and full, maybe fuller emptiness, as if emptiness can even get fuller, which is interesting. In the phrase, the emptiness is full continues to resonate. I continue playing, laughing, understanding on non-intellectual level, a non-intellectual level, moving energy that moves through the emptiness of the room. And then I understand without asking, but I see it that we are emptiness, that we are emptiness through which energy flows. That energy is life, and that we are all united in that emptiness. That form separates us, but emptiness is what unites us and the energy that floods it. And if we are able to perceive this, we would be united in the emptiness that we are. There would only be harmony in the world. There's a kind of speech that comes up when there's this brain state that enters this void that tends to become poetic. And there's a lot of repetitions of similar words that holds a lot of meaning. So I continue lying down, laughing and enjoying this fullness. And I understand why they say you have to vibrate high. I think this is interesting to write down. Vibrate high. If we don't vibrate high, we let more or less energy pass through energy that is life as we let our empty being. I don't vibrate, I just let life do it in me. I let the emptiness be, the energy flood everything. Okay, I understand inner dance, where you relax, and in that state, waves and waves in the form of music comes with changes and changes. They open you, they open your emptiness. So it's here, it's almost like he's defining inner dance through the experience of it. That is why the body moves, because the resistance we've stored maybe goes away and the energy cleanses, because when there's a small gap, a slight crack of emptiness, the energy, which is life, sneaks in and goes there, enlarging the void, letting life flow. So he's just enjoying it like a child. And yeah, it sounds like an amazing um, process. Wait, let me just check in Val. Maybe she's messaging. Okay. Um, she's not in yet. Don't know what to do. Yeah. Okay, so those would be first things to bring up. And I think that could be interesting as a starting point. Let's go to my notes. Okay, these are notes from the ongoing training. Right, so his words kind of describe inner dance. It doesn't explain it so much. Description is very much using um, words that point to the thing in itself. It doesn't really go so much into the structural yet. To go into the structural, you wouldn't just point at something, you would go inside the thing. So today we would try to go inside, let's say if inner dance was a box, what is inside the inner dance box? Um, just a moment, I have an idea. Maybe I can get Fanny to co-host. So if in case there's this issue with people not being able to come in,
Yeah, I'll
maybe,
have a look.
yeah, because it's hard for me to maybe break
Yeah,
my,
to book.
yeah, because we started already. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, Fanny. All right. Wait, let me just change the setting as well in my iPad so it doesn't keep shutting off and shutting down. It's like the power mode. Okay. Um, there's that. So, based on what Jesus or Jesus wrote, inner dance has been understood similarly by a lot of people attending trainings and holding space. The simpler version of inner dance is it has a capacity to create what today we might call like a rupture or an ability to create a breaking down, a breaking through, a breaking in. Um, so I want to maybe contextualize this and structure it a little bit to understand like how okay it's doing that like how is it doing that the the insights the answers to that question just keeps going on, but it's important that we have like a starting point, um and that means we would need to look at certain terms that we could share. um So as Jesus mentioned, like his experience had something to do with the music. I hadn't always used music. There was so much of my inner dance process where I wasn't using music. Like in the beginning, in the middle, sometimes now when I facilitate, I don't use music. But music is there for us to study many things, whether it be the brain, we could study the mind, the energy flow. Music makes all these more visible so that we can contain the study elements more. So when people learn to facilitate, they one of the first stages is to undergo selection modes, like what modalities, what trigger mechanisms bring about um, healing, which in many cases happen in the form of like a rupture, like a breaking point. And when you intuit what is in a song, let's say you listen to different elements of a song, you listen to the rhythm of a song, you listen to the harmony, you can just keep going on. It could be like say the texture of the music. Song has texture, there's tonality, rhythm is also called tempo. There's something about all these that when you bring them together, they signify a brain state, which is actually composed of many brain states. So when you study how trance happens, um, there are certain musics and even words, certain ways of touching people that bring about a possible trance-like state, right? So song choice would be a starting point before you study how to combine different elements. You combine basically music along with the way you touch bodies, the way you contextualize the space to the words that you use, the way you position the body unto itself already determines an experience. So a lot of it begins with the selection process first. Like how do I choose the vibrations or frequencies that would hold the room together. And once I choose, then yeah, like you start to combine these. So in the beginning, a long time ago, the song choices in the inner dance were actually like super simple. We were looking for constituent elements that would perform certain tasks. And the primary task actually had to do with
Hi,
breaking.
hi.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you want us to
Uh-huh.
see what you're drawing? Because we're seeing the website.
Oh, oh, I see. Yeah, sometimes yeah, that happens. Thank you so much. I need to reshare because then um let me know if this is okay now. Can you see it?
Yes, we
No.
can see it now.
Uh,
Thank you.
Yes.
okay. Sorry. That was a couple of minutes of me drawing and you guys just staring at a bunch of words in the website. All right. So yeah, I was basically like outlining yeah, all these different parts like rhythm, harmony, texture, and so on and so forth. Um, like a song is basically like a collection of many elements to begin with, and um, these basic elements are powerful unto themselves, so that we can understand maybe a song is made up of constituent units already unto itself, but because the song is unto itself a one thing, it's like a constituent unit that then would, so let's say this is a song, that constituent unit would then interact with other constituent units, maybe in a sequence or maybe in a simultaneity. So there's something about the movement from unit to unit that actually comprises the change. So when people say my life changed, was it changed by the actual song? Was it changed by like all of these songs put together? Um, Probably the the essence would be in the process of changing. So it's understanding the what you might call the transition. It's very important for you to understand the nature of transitions because these would have corresponding effects in the mind body energy brain system. It allows for changes in the mind, and a lot of those changes won't always be traceable. The changes are quite random, but with the body, those changes are very concrete. The changes in the mind are what you might call abstract. Um, so if you do want to study those which are more or less stable, where there would be patterns that can be recognized in the beginning, these concrete elements can lead to an understanding of the abstract later. That's one of the possible ways to study these. So some of the changes in the body would have to do with, say, hormones that are being produced and released. There'd be neurotransmitters, and then there would be, let's say, changes in the heartbeat, changes in the brain waves, changes in the um, let's say the breathing pattern, which then simulates changes in our overall being. So all these changes put together, let's say you put all these changes together, right? They would lead to changes in the mind, which would then lead to changes in, let's say, behavior, the way we speak, the way we think. All of those are intrinsically interconnected. There is a causal um, interaction between the mind and the body in this way. And that's why our trainings signify both. So let me see. I want to maybe give an example. let's go into some of the musical elements in inner dance. I'm gonna look for some songs that held vibrations in the past. I hope the sound works. Fanny, just help me out. If there's no sound, let me know. Then we'll skip this section.
It
So this
works. Art.
it worked. Amazing, thank you. So it starts out about here. And what you see is there's like a buildup. So a song isn't stable. It's not static. For us to understand a lot of the songs that we normally choose and are attracted to, they are um they are changing in and of themselves. Like the tempo and the mixture of the sounds undergo changes already. There's like a whole process inbuilt to every song. So this is constant rhythmicity in this song that I really like. It's not too much in the beginning, but there's just enough of a build-up to allow for the release of those chemicals that we mentioned. And then there's this chant that just loops the same message that wouldn't be understood by just people who don't understand the Sanskrit. So it doesn't bring you too much into the thinking process. Okay, so in the past, whenever I played this song, within a sequence of songs, meaning this would probably be about song number 3. Yeah, this would be the 3rd song on my playlist if I programmed everything in a constant way. What I want to demonstrate is the movement when we speak about transitions. What would happen if we moved from this song? Okay, so there's a sharp relationship between those two. Okay, I was trying to go back to the other one, but let's listen to this one. This is one of the other type of transition track that I used to use. So sweetest sound, like Body Blessing, is still quite relaxing, but the wave here is a lot more gentle. So by the time the synthesizer pad sound comes in, there's a kind of gap. Okay, so I want to build in that. Let's go back to the iPad and let me know if you can see it. All right. So what we're looking at is the concept of transition that brings about the energy of change. Like the transition is a change agent. So let's say we listen to Indu and then we moved over to Body Blessing. Body Blessing or Sweetest Sound, if you remember the nature of the waves, then let's say if we put that onto a matrix or a chart, the difference between Body Blessing would be, say, have this delta sound that's very relaxing, very smooth, made up of mostly sine waves. But if we're measuring more like amplitude, amplitude would be the strength of the sound. A lot of people would normally call that volume. The it if this is a Body Blessing, the sound amplitude would have started out quite strong here already. Let's say it starts out here and then it just goes strongly, consistently there, like really high, as compared to maybe sweetest sound. It has a very different wave. Let's say if you were studying, okay, how do I know what to put on and when and in what intensity? Sweetest sound amplitude wise might start out super low, and then it rises up gently, and then it stays maybe not even that high, maybe on an amplitude level in comparison. Sweetest sound, it would just be here. And it's a very short track, so it would go down like this. Okay. So when you compare the waves, like this starts high and then it holds a lot higher. So studying this, if we study this purely from an energetic construct, um, I'm not sure what um, insights that would hold, but if we were to study it from a neurology, like a brain and nervous system nervous system mapping, we would at least surmise that the chemistry of change here would be somewhat different. Like here, somewhat different from here. The quick release of that early sound I have found so much more effective in the transition phase as compared to this. I would use this on particular parts of the journey. Um, and I would maybe use these in particular parts of the journey. So maybe I would use Sweetest Sound as the first song because I'm not often using it as transition. I could use it as a first song because its build up is a lot slower. So it's not interacting with another song. So there's something about the concept of the break, right? The break, the rupture. Let's say you had a mapping of Indu, that song that we listened to that was quite lively. Um, there's like a slow build up, and then it just has a sharp, edgy, rhythmic tune um, happening. So then there would be the transition from that wave to that wave. Okay, so that would comprise the in between. There's something about the intermixture where, let's say, this is one song and then this is another song. The one song is perfect unto itself. It's beautiful. It does its own thing. But then when you bring up the other song, there's something about the in-between space between, let's say, the green and the indigo that would turn like another color, like pink or orange or red or blue, depending on the person or the situation. Um, so this is inner dance. Inner dance is that relationship, and this is what you would um, more or less study. Okay, if I was to maybe list down the main original techniques that were used by facilitators globally, like what would the common ones be? Um, there would be this very common, sorry, very common technique called juxtaposition. Juxtaposition means placing oppositions or contrasts between constituent units. So that was an example, what I demonstrated, um, like Hindu compared to body blessing, they're so unlike each other. So when you juxtapose them together, you would get a corresponding effect in the brain. Another technique that inner dance grew out of was to create the conditions where the arms would move by themselves. There are several ways to do this. One way is simply to raise the arms of a participant, and when you leave them alone, they start moving on their own. Sometimes you work in the chest, you work on certain parts of the torso or the head, and then the arms just find their way into movement. But I'm mentioning this because this has a role in the rupture element in the process. The other technique that is quite common would be emotional trigger mechanisms. So this could be through touch, words. They could also be with the music, but in that sense, that isn't just based on the juxtaposition of the songs. The juxtaposition actually brings people beyond emotions, and the song elements themselves, in a different way, create like trigger mechanisms. So these are the techniques, these are the tools that we use. So one of our questions is, okay, what exactly is happening when we create that break, or the rupture, right? The rupting energy, the disruption, the interruption, uh, the 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 rupture energy. In the old training mechanisms of inner dance, um, a lot of the techniques were founded on simple awareness of a rerouting of certain chemicals, mainly neurotransmitters and hormones. And the main chemical that we have studied over the years is called dopamine. Dopamine plays a really huge role in programming people's bodies, minds, in a way that there's expectations, there's anticipations, there's rhythmic patterns in our behavior, in the simple ways that we move our body. And inner dance is a technique based on this ability to reroute dopamine from certain centers. It would be good over the year to study what those centers are. These centers are attention, memory, motor programs, motor meaning motoric, which means how you move your body in the usual way it moves. And then there would be emotion. So that our systems of control are held by these programs. So what we found out very early on is very extreme changes in the music, between rhythm, between tempo, between genres, actually brings about a rerouting of dopamine. And this helps to explain why the rupture. Because if dopamine holds a role in sustaining, let's say memory is about the life story. It's like, I am my story. I am the way I move my body. I am my body language. I am my thinking process. And I am the part of me that always wants to feel good and avoid pain. When we're able to reroute dopamine, then there is a change that comes about as dopamine sustains a lot of these mentioned. It helps us to remember. It helps us to emote, to stay focused, and yeah. So this is the basic premise for a while. And what we realized was that dopamine could be rerouted to other sections of the brain. That dopamine could actually be rerouted to, for now, let's call it the old brain, because a lot of these are actually conducted by the new brain, which is the neocortex. It's the neocortex. Oops. The old brain would be something that consists more of subcortical brain areas. They could partly be related to the limbic system, which is responsible for deeper emotions, or they could also be related to the reptilian brain systems, which are responsible for autonomic functions, which would be breathing, digesting, resting, sleeping, dreaming, pulsing the heart, immunity, metabolism, and so on and so forth, right? It's all those elements that we don't have control over. So this is what we've been doing. We know now how to activate the old brain. And these, did I erase them? These techniques that I mentioned that has the ability to rupture attention, memory, emotions, and motor functions. There's something about the old brain that holds a much, much deeper memory. So there's still memory. It's just that the memory of the old brain is different. It's quite different from the memory that's stored in the new brain. So that's one introduction as to how and why inner dance happens as it does. And maybe this already gives you some pointers or guidance as to like why that song. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're like choosing it within Spotify or iTunes or YouTube. How do you even know what to choose, considering there's just so many musics in the world right now, from multicultural, multidimensional, multi-genre environment? How do you know which song? It has something to do with finding paradox, finding um, um, like finding disconnections, even looking for jumps. You're looking for possible jump points, which would possibly hold those transitions, so that the song is actually only partly valuable. What's valuable would be these transition points. So you almost need to be eclectic. You need to be able to find different harmonies and rhythms that don't always kind of go together. Okay, so having this, maybe let's see how we can deepen this conversation, because what I shared, this is already readily available in material that we published a lot in the past. I want to go into possible new insights that could be useful for all of us. So we're thinking about design elements, like how do you design a process that would bring about like a break or a rupture? We would need to borrow certain elements in the body process to maybe understand this. So one of the tools we use isn't actually like a concrete tool. It's a very abstract tool. It's called stress. Stress is a big factor. It's something we would work with. We wouldn't try to avoid it. A lot of people are avoiding stress. They are unable to deal with stress. Stress is actually hiding a lot of insights and a lot of power. And when you learn to let it loose, stress can transition to something else altogether. So I want to bring up like a model that I find quite interesting within the stress modeling system. Wait, thicker. It's called the general adaptation syndrome. And I like to cover science-based topics like this so that when you find yourself speaking to doctors, school principals, parents, teachers, and even clients, if they had certain questions, then you might find useful terms. At the same time, you might also find these useful when you're mapping out why am I doing what I'm doing? That seems to be automatic. I know what I'm doing, but it helps to understand within like what is happening. The general adaptation syndrome was coined by the Hungarian Canadian Hans Selye. And I realized that he's actually responsible for um the current understanding of stress. He's the one who brought that into common usage, and he also is responsible for our understanding of the hypothalamic, pituitary. For those who've been studying with us for a while, you would know what this is. Adrenal axis. Why this would be important is because the adrenaline gland secretes the stress hormone cortisol. That's from the adrenal cortex, and the adrenal medulla secretes catecholamines such as adrenaline or epinephrine and norepinephrine. All of these which are responsible for fight or flight or stress management situations. So sorry, I realized maybe you're trying to copy that. This is going to be in the video. Okay. The general adaptation system, or GAS, what fuels our fight or flight symptoms, could be described in multiple stages. There would be like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. I just want to bring these up, and I want to interrelate that within the inner dance construct. Why are we experiencing what we're experiencing? So the first could be called alarm, and then there's 2 stages to that: shock and anti-shock. And I cannot undervalue this word enough. Like a lot of techniques people are experimenting with in the process is about how to shock the body, how to shock the mind so that it could break its normal patterns. Stage 2 would be called resistance, and stage 3 would be called exhaustion, and also or recovery. Okay, so I'd bring this up in terms of what Jesus mentioned, that in his inner dance experience with Paula, he felt like exhausted, like tired. And then there was afterwards something that spelled surrender. So we're going to go back to that like later. For now, let's outline what this model could mean. So let's say this is someone who's going through a normal day, and then something threatening comes up during the day. So this would be stage 1. There would be like a drop when there's shock, and then through anti-shock, and then all the way through resistance. Then there would be a drop into exhaustion. So this would be stage 1, this would be stage 2. So these are the 3 stages. This would be alarm, this would be resistance, and then this would be exhaustion. Okay, so this actually could describe an inner dance wave in a way. We're working with this wave in a way that we're mimicking it. At the same time, we're also like shifting it. We're reshaping this wave. So according to Celia, in the first stage, because the person is not yet recognizing the situation, there may not be as much alterations in the stress response system. But ultimately, this is where stress starts to climb up. And in this stage 1, we might see more of cortisol being released. So when you experience a threat, the first stress response mechanism that comes up is cortisol. And then in the second stage, like the resistance stage, this is where we start to see the fight or flight mechanism begin to come up. So what would be released here would be adrenaline, which is also called epinephrine, as well as norepinephrine. And this could last like a long time. This could last for hours. This could last for like long duration, depending on the nature of the threat. I mean, in animals, the peak point is like going to be a lot shorter, because with animals, when the presence of the agent causing the threat is gone, stress response systems go down. But with humans, because we are not just scared, we're also anxious. Even when the source of the threat isn't there anymore, the resistance and alarm stages could actually still be high, maybe even days after, depending on the locus of control and the reactive system in a person. A lot of people, they go to the inner dance because they often would say, I'm not reacting as much as I used to anymore to the things that used to scare me. It's not that we are taking away responses. There's still a lot of response. So there's a difference between reactivity and responsibility. In inner dance, when the body is moving or energies are moving in the body, there's still quite a lot of responsibility, which is one of our main tenets, that people stay responsible. They are able to respond. But something that declines would be the normal reactions we might have to scary situations. So this is one of the reasons why we are enacting a shock therapy, almost, just to see if people could be exposed to scary situations. So that when we do take up music, a lot of the music is in fact designed to both bring about reactivity and responsibility, especially in terms of like the tempo or the rhythm in the music, when the tempo builds up, or when we make a selection where there's a really palpitating tempo or rhythm, there's more of a reaction mechanism as opposed to a response mechanism. And so we allow people to move from reactivity to responsibility through like an acclimatization or a desensitization, getting people used to things that used to scare them, which then remaps a lot of these neurotransmitter elements that would come up. So Celia wasn't so big on other study processes. His main concentration was stress. So we would just have to surmise what chemicals would be released at that point of exhaustion. There could be like a host, like a cocktail of dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. These are chemicals that come up after pain onset has maybe leveled out. There could be acetylcholine, and most importantly, there could be GABA. So this is why I shared with you the two possible options of song choices after Indu, right? I played Indu, which is very stimulating. It's an upper, and then I showed you two possibilities of downers, like Body Blessing was one. That was a downer. And then Sweetest Sound was the downer. But the mixture of Body Blessing and Sweetest Sound is very, very different. Something happens when, for example, like here, there's like a gap between the songs. Oops. Or when there's the gentle transition. And then here, when there's an abrupt transition. And so what we'll study in the future is when you create those changes. So let's say this is stage one, alarm, initial stress response. And then this is stage two, fight or flight. And then this is stage three. So the movement from stage one to stage three usually actually takes a long time. When people experience a crisis, they might be experiencing stage one, for a long time before they admit, okay, I'm here. When you rush that, from stage one to stage two to stage three, when you rushed that movement, well, then let's say, okay, I'm building a playlist, I'm building a journey, and I'm going to design it, and it's going to happen only within a time duration of, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 minutes. It can be anything between 60 to 90 minutes. So let's average out at maybe 80 minutes. In 80 minutes, if you create this multi-stage approach from stage one to stage three, there's something about the intermixture of all these chemicals that brings about the rupture. Okay, so let's say this is what an inner dance wave would look like. Here you might have like fear, and then here you might have surrender. And then here's where everything gets mixed up. Like the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system gets mixed up there. That is where inner dance is happening. That's where inner dance is happening. So yeah, I think this could be like a starting point for a lot of people wanting to study in general. We could keep going on and on. But, like we're getting messages from people. I want to start creating playlists. I want to start DJing. I want to work with the music. Um, I'm looking for like a starting point here, and this could be like a really good conversational entry point. I think one deep insight this is going to bank upon theoretically is um, understanding that initially the first technology we are holding on to is the rerouting of dopamine release in those four centers that I mentioned, like attention, memory, motor functions, and emotion. Um, I'm going to Singapore tomorrow, and Singapore actually was the first inner dance model. Like in Singapore, like inner dance just exploded, and I often wondered why. Why is it that people are so susceptible to inner dance here? Like they were doing it in multitudes. We couldn't find big enough rooms to fit people because there were so many people who would just lay down and explode in the system. This is about 2010, 2011. Without going too deeply into what makes Singapore Singapore, where Singapore is a mirror or analogous to all the other cities out there. I mean, Singapore is a city state. It's a city-sized country. It's known that most millionaires per capita in the world are in Singapore. It's quite congested. So if you find yourself like in a really big city, um, you would also probably map out um, populations that are filled with dopamine, say dopamine reliant populations. And when humans get overly reliant on dopamine, the um, the lifestyles would very much be control oriented, pain avoidant, pleasure seeking, and also over planning, meaning quite linear, and yeah, like time very time based, meaning everything needs to go according to schedule. Also results oriented. And a lot of these are starting to show um, multiple symptoms in people's bodies, whether it be sleep deprivation, whether it be diseases, emotional disorders. So this is one of the big reasons why our work comes across effective. It is because we're able to break this initially as the first technology. I mean, this is not the only technology within inner dance. Um, there are other chemistries of transformation that we bring up. And this isn't actually the months where we're supposed to be thinking about these yet. But I think this should be enough for people wanting to understand where playlisting comes from. Um, there could be so many colors of things to break down, whether it be like emotional colors, whether it be anger, despair, um, depression, whether it be shame or guilt. There could be like behavior, And most especially like addictions, um, you would then need like a psychological makeup of people that understands how is control situated, and then how would my juxtapositions help in um, yeah, breaking things down. Um, so here I think we're coming closer to the the month's main theme, which is the mind-body problem. The mind-body problem in spirituality is, I think, relevant. The mind-body problem is something that belongs more to the philosophies, psychologies, anthropology. But I think in the spiritual process, a lot of people are pretty much um, switching between the mind or the body. So if we go back to the um, notes garnered from Jesus in the website, based on his inner dance experiences, he said um, again and again, like the empty is full. Already, this is quite paradoxical. The empty should be precisely that which is like there's nothing there. There's nothing. And full means everything is there. It's abundant as opposed to it's scarce. So what exactly does he mean? I would maybe look at um we need to vibrate high. I'm not sure if this would hold context always. Um, Speaking to Linda's question about MS, it's actually the very low vibrations that could heal MS. Low vibrations being able to send out GABA, GABAergic, um, I I mean, just GABA, the neurotransmitter. Um, Neurotransmitters that then would inhibit many neurons in the brain that then allow delta waves to arise and be sent out. And in that emptiness, there would be um, a myelination. And myelination can actually happen through neurogenetic stages when after shock, let's say after long bouts of difficulties and problems, when the body finds rest, GABA and delta get sent out. So a very different inner dance would need to happen where the vibrations shouldn't be high, they should be low. But anyway, like empty and full, looking at the mind body problem, when we're born, say this is a baby. Need it bigger. This is the baby. That doesn't, yeah, maybe that's the baby. Maybe this is like a big person. When we're born, um, what is empty, right? It's the mind that's empty. And when we grow up, um, uh, it's the mind that's full. So then when people describe like diving or surrendering into the emptiness, we're gonna keep studying how we are going back to the child mind, which is it's a brain state. It's also like an energy flow, depending on how you want to look at it from a structural perspective, or a an astructural, meaning just use the same words again and again. Um, so it could be interesting to understand how maybe in the baby the body is full in the baby state. And I think there could be possible understandings of this, maybe from, let's say, the fact that the brain of a baby is not yet interconnected by synapses, but the brain has so much more neurons, then there's a lot more potency in the body of a baby. and then maybe the body of adults. I wouldn't say it's empty, but when we are let's look at Jesus's words. He has some good stuff there. Just so we could yeah, go into the sharing soon. Yeah, when we don't vibrate high, I think what he's insinuating is that when we're not vibrating, we're merely existing, and we're like zombies, just making our way through life, running the hamster wheel. And the body isn't vibrant. It goes into an entropic dying process. And so somehow emptying the mind makes the body full, where the body starts to move with its own energy, move with its own power, move with its own like wisdom, because the body does hold that potential memory that's not actualized. Actualized would be more the persona, the ego, the psyche, but the true memories of the body is coming from ancient futures. So yeah, I think I would stay there as an introduction to the first month. This could help us maybe look at study elements together for those who are studying. When you study the different playlisting systems historically, the old technologies were, wait, let's just go one last into this. Let's go into the Green Wiki. Let's go into the different playlisting systems. So if people were learning like how to reroute dopamine, for example, how to create a rupture, the old systems are very powerful because we didn't have yet the apps that could gently transition one song to the next. So the transitions were very sharp. And what I demonstrated to you, those were techniques that were developed because of the limitations of the technologies back then. And that showed us certain elements or aspects of the brain. So maybe you wouldn't give up some of those tendencies. You would study, you would go into song selection, you could study possible songs. We're happy to share these songs with you. I didn't actually have a copy of these songs, but I found a playlist in Spotify that says Pi Inner Dance playlist or something, and I found all the old songs there. But I can move a lot of those into folders that we can share via Google Drive in case you wanted to study. What used to work in those years from 2009 onwards, this would be something we would ask people to study that would intermix the different song elements, and would love for you as you study to give feedbacks. So I think this would allow us to go into studying how to playlist soon. Something we take our time to introduce first because there's really just so much, and we don't want to overwhelm you. So finding the right tool, finding the right constituent units might depend on what are your intentions, and understanding how you're going to create ruptures in people's systems would be I think a good starting point. All right, so I'm going to open the space. I would love to hear from people from this community, whether they've been facilitating for a long time, you could give more insights, or people who are new at this. And then if there were interesting questions, sharings, experiences from past journeys that interrelates to what we shared, could be ironies even, or violent reactions. It's up to you. Thank you for listening. Okay, so I think Val, hey, I'm glad you made it. Um,
I am so sorry. I think I was using Christina's link or something, but I had the worst FOMO ever because I knew you guys were on. I was about to just walk over there since I'm here in the Philippines, but thank you for the space. I will, of course, go back and hear the recording. But I wanted to jump in and ask you something and then share with the group also, because we talk about these waves and something happened in my inner dance session here at Mount Puro this last Sunday, which was a first for me, and it was just so beautiful. And I wonder where that falls into the curve, or we that moment where the emotions come. Well, I'll speak for myself. I have seen it more during the trip, the experience. So the journey was over. So we thought. So I thought. And I was just in the last part. By the way, obviously the nature here in the Philippines, I think, is like a Montessorian that I am, the perfect environment to help the process in such a way. And I was in a beautiful gazebo that was circular. So I mean, the elements were there. And as I was walking around, just channeling in like last messages to maybe start awakening people, I literally felt like a pull. I mean, it was just I couldn't avoid it to go back to these two people that were next to each other that happened to be husband and wife. By the way, they had a whole crisis. They were speaking to each other 4 days before coming here. The wife pushed the man to come. The man came first, and it was a really interesting journey. So lo and behold, I kneeled down and I was just with my eyes closed, channeling with the microphone, and felt a pull to just touch one more time, even though it was the end. It was completely the end. And I actually have it in vision. It was just so beautiful how this man had no physical aspect that he had anything going on and that he was going to go into that stage. But lo and behold, these words were, I felt, completely channeled for him, but echoed for the group. And just 1, 2, 3 points allowed him to go into such liberation and had the wife next to him. And for me, it was one of the best moments that I've felt. I have had many, but this one, just the unity of the energy between the wife and the hubby, and how I wasn't in that rush to wake up anybody or to bring back the space, and allowed to put into practice this that I've been observing, teaching, of course, being blessed to see how you facilitate live has given me so many tools to turn around and tap into the energy the way it is. And last night I spoke about unlearn to learn, and you speak about it all the time, and it's become my favorite phrase because I had other practices and other ways of working with this energy, and it is now that it's making sense to me, and then I'm seeing almost like a miracle after a miracle. So I wonder, what that is in terms of a wave. Obviously I felt that it was a divine moment, and this couple, even though we finished and everybody was waking up, we had another little aha moment that was with no words, just the three of us. I mean, it's ridiculous when you see it. Like the sun was shining down. It was like I almost was just waiting for angels to go. Ah! It was so beautiful. So in the curve, or what is that? Or yeah, just wanted to share that and see. I don't need to understand it. It feels right, but I kind of want to.
mm. Yeah, this is amazing. What mountain again are you in? I'm trying to
Mount
remember.
Puro. Mount
Ah, yeah.
Puro. We're here with
Puro.
Kid
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Iñaki.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I remember this one time when I conducted one of my first trainings here in Palawan. One of the attendees was a Swedish lady, and she was undergoing divorce proceedings with her ex-husband. So they were going through that whole thing of properties, and so it was ugly. They weren't able to speak to each other without the lawyers. So they were supposed to have a meeting between them. And she had come from the Philippines, so she didn't tell him anything about what she did here. What she did was she put the inner dance playlist in the background. like super soft, super subliminal. And then she just waited. They were just going into this emotion of anger. But by the third song, she saw him start to cry. By the fifth song, they were hugging. So I think we're stuck by our programming so that, let's say, we're in a stress response mechanism. I would map this out like partially in a cultural manner because you're in the Philippines. Now I'm going to Singapore tomorrow. Um, Filipinos and Southeast Asians in general, we tend to take things really personally. And when we do, there's a lack of objectivity that is there when the emotions override the thinking process. So let's say that's the amygdala overriding the prefrontal cortex. And when you rely on the emotional buttons long enough, the thinking process would actually stop. So this is partly what I'm saying about not avoiding the stress. If you take stress all the way through, the stress response mechanism that's being directed by cortisol, all it needs is help from the ones that would slow down the response mechanism. So what people would need if they are not talking to each other is oxytocin. They don't have oxytocin there, then there's no trust. Oxytocin being the trust hormone. If there's no serotonin, it's going to be the same thing. Let me give like a one example. I was so blown away by this. Actually, I don't think I can talk about it because it's a private matter. I would need permission, but it just was a story based on medically people couldn't do anything about it, and then she decided to listen to the music, and this impossible thing that just wouldn't happen just happened. So we can, I think we can just trust that in general, the thing that we do can work on the first recovery wave. It's not a be all end all solution. Like there's a lot that we can't just heal that needs to then translate into clarity, into words, into expression, into real listening. But we are quite amazed that the first wave that could lead to that eventual healing, like it can be pervasive. So it's amazing what you shared.
Of course, they ended up holding hands and, you know,
Mm.
being, I'm going to share like this image if you can see them just like, you see the sun, how it's shining. This is towards the very end. And I mean, there was actually two couples, one that hadn't spoke to each other in 4 days and the other one 3 days for the same reason. They were fighting to come here and it was just beautiful ending. So I'm just grateful to be understanding and tapping into the energy with more clarity and ease. Thank you so much, Kai, for your teaching.
Yeah, I think in general, what you were speaking about was oxytocin. I think that could have completed the wave. If oxytocin is normally what starts a journey, when you start a journey super opening, super relaxed, it's oxytocin that builds the trust. And I think a lot of people are just unable to trust. So in your case, because they can't trust each other, they just need anything to trust right now. Because deep down, a lot of Filipinos are trusting, but when they've lost that, they need to find someone who can hold that for them. And I think for those who are here in communities like these, this is going to have to be us, that we allow people to trust us so that they can trust each other and trust themselves. Thank you. Okay, so hi. I think Oscar's been trying to come in and out. Anyone would like to share or hold a question or add to the insights that have been brought up in the last hour and a half? Okay, in the meantime, while you guys are building up, I wanted to share actually like a video with you guys. It could be interesting. it could be interesting for you. You just have to let me know if you hear the sound. So we've been working with the EEGs here, as Val and others well know. And then we did this particular one with a Filipino American who just found her way to the Philippines and joined us. Okay, so in the beginning, like we were trying to read her brain waves, and um like there was nothing coming out. She was just worried, like, I don't have a brain. I don't have a brain. And because I reduced the sensitivity levels of the epoch EEG. So here in Maya, we conduct experiments where people would use essential oils or sound. So this might be just good to observe in the spirit of understanding what does it mean to rupture the control mechanisms that don't allow for the spreading of activation of electricity that travels in and through our brain and body. So at first, the lighting up is very sporadic and very rare. Only here it's beginning to light up because Floor comes with their voice. Wow. Wow. Fireworks. Just the whole thing blew up. Blew up. Wow. Still. Was that amazing?
Amazing.
So all that shading is actually just the electricity, which is like
It's the neurons. Yeah. So it was really cool. Just maybe what we can glean from that video is the spreading of activation of most of the oscillations happened the moment she closed her eyes. When her eyes were open, you could still see there was not as much spread, but then it's almost epileptiform, this seizure-like quality that the moment you shut down the systems of interpretation gated by the thalamus region, which is, like interpreting all of these things that we're seeing, then we create judgments, and then we're worried, we're overthinking. Understanding how to more or less override these interpretive mechanisms, it brings about this like this brain, like this gray matter explosions, white matter explosion, which then coincides with the old brain activation. So I thought that might be interesting to think about. Yeah, anyone has questions, ideas, or sharings? It doesn't need to be like seemingly super related. You'd be surprised it might actually be. So anything that came up that could have been interesting for you.
Yeah, I can go. Wow, I felt so zoomed in the video you just shared. I felt for a second I forgot I was not in Maya. Like it was really like interesting to be there again. I'm super happy to see the result and how it's been awaiting for a long time. This video is quite interesting, and also the correlation with closing the eyes. I think it's quite interesting. I'm wondering now, I have questions about details that I don't know if you have been looking into it, like if it's digital sound, or if it's like a person like Flora singing, or the didgeridoo from Andre, or if there would be differences, or what are actually the differences that are getting for the activation of the brain. So yeah, I can go deeper into this, but something else that came up that was shared in this call is I really appreciate to see the wave through the stress response. I think it's a good way to actually explore the mechanism of the wave, and to see how much through the process of the stages we can really see the playlist in it, and we can see how it's been it's something that happens naturally in the body, so we're kind of like following and breaking in parts of the playlist. So it was a good way for me, a different way to look into it compared to before. And there's something else I wanted to share. Yeah, observing also the control mechanism that are happening within the brain and within the body, that are being broken through this kind of like space-based playlisting and not time-based playlisting. And I feel that it's something interesting to look into as we shifted along the years from this song to song, which was more time-based, over the space-based, where now we hold multiple dimensionality instead of holding more time. So there's something interesting I feel within this time and space and control that I didn't see before, that it's not something I observed, but that through showing the general adaptation syndrome model, I could have more like an overview from that perspective, and to see that it's kind of like touching into this axis where we can really have a focus on where the pattern lies within the anger or despair or addictions, or where all of this is happening in more like a getting to a point. So having like not holding space, but holding time, like holding like a linearity. So yeah, it was quite interesting for me to observe that. And yeah, I think that's
Yeah, I think
no, yeah.
one thing that comes to me while listening to you, which has been there, um, I think we need to have this great permission to allow people to go into their deep fears. Like there were many moments where people, when they first learn the practice, they would put very conservative songs. I'm really not about making things loud for its own sake, or to try to trigger people for the sake of triggering people. I think there's an art to it. I think there needs to be a refinement, but often comes out a little bit too raw and even too, like, way too much. But um, looking at the general adaptation syndrome model and just looking at our stress response systems in general, I think it's okay to bring people into stress levels, even high stress levels, when they can deal with it. And at that point of really dealing with it, it doesn't, it's not stress anymore. It's like high vibration, as Jesus might have tried to speak about it. Like conservative means, when people started to first learn this practice, a lot of people would put like really spiritual songs, very smooth songs, like Italy called them shanti shanti songs. And I don't use those so much. I might have like a couple in my old folders, but I somehow got attracted to the provocative or the evocative, the ones that really bring out the hidden human. And so, like, in my culture, people aren't allowed to be afraid on multiple levels. They're supposed to hide their fear. They're supposed to hide like a lot of emotions. So getting into this confrontational space, what Val has been describing, it actually took a lot of gall. We had to really put ourselves out there. Is it okay to do this? And when we sent that permission out, it was just going to keep happening. So I think to go back to the general adaptation syndrome model, it would be interesting to borrow a lot from stage 3 and then bring that alongside stage 1 and stage 2 early enough. And so that's like the space-based, but the time-based would be more, if people were really studying the vibrations that they were going to present to people's bodies, it could be very liberating to have this sense that I can choose what the wave of fear is going to be based on something as simple as song selection, which isn't going to be song selection anymore. It's choosing a wave that's going to hold valuable people's processes. It's like, do you want to climb up in this way, or do you want to batter them right away, or do you want like a gentle easing into, like, is there something to learn from this or that? And then when you bring about the relaxation, the letting go, would that be abrupt or would that be gentle as well? So we would study maybe the outcomes, repercussions, but we'd also study what are the actual chemistries that bring about this mind-body chicken egg causal relationship. So I agree with you. I like Hans Selye's model. We brought it up in the training here, and it really helped to understand the co-activation between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. I think it holds something there, but because the model is old, I think we should be allowed to present this model in different ways. So it's not just going to be called a stress model, but it could be called like a recovery model or a healing model, a transformation model. Thank you, Fanny. Okay, okay. Anyone else has
Hello.
Hey, Beth. Nice to see you.
I want to tell my experience since I started inner dance. I speak Spanish and it has been difficult to me to participate in this space because I have to write what I am going to say while I learn English better. But from the language point of view, taking this step has been incredible. The energy surpassed all the barriers. The magic is precis precisamente, no sé, precisely in that I have felt the strength, the energy in my hands each season. I do it, other feels different. That is now they express in it, and that is a defect. Last week, I was in the meeting, and when the meeting was over, a person uh, approached me and told me that he had a lot of headache, and when I had arrived at it had happened to him, that he wanted to know why that situation was happening. And wow, it's magnificent. The energy is wonderful. I'm very happy. Um, I'm very happy, so happy. And the practice, the experience, and your energy pie is impressionant. And just sitting your or listening your transform and begin. I feel a lot of happiness, a lot of emotion. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. We understood 1000% of what you said. And thank you for putting yourself out considering your language difficulty. I think it's a good way to learn, to be in the energy and then to be in this translation process. So thank you so much. Okay, anyone else wants to use the space as an opportunity to interact? Brendan. I think let's check in your sound. We can hear you, but there's something very muted. Either the sound's coming from the laptop speaker or it should come from. Let's give this another try.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Well, I've been hearing a lot, but I haven't been listening, to be honest, since the first introduction. And I think you mentioned the unraveling pie, and I just started. This is actually a follow-on from some stuff I did before in Oman, where we sat down and had to do some painting, which, you know, I've never been a creative person, so I did a pretty basic painting. It was of a star, and the unraveling has evolved from there. And it's, I'll put that picture up there if you can see that. Some may perceive that as the Star of David or the Seal of Solomon. And a lot of that is, I'd guess, we pick up from hearing. the storyline to that from old scripts, perceived knowings of teachers from those scripts, which I've got written on these points. It's like it's become static, that knowing. It's not alive anymore. The symbol's lost its mystique through audible words that can be defined by a dictionary, have a meaning, and this is what it's supposed to mean. The way I see it, that symbol there, the star, is so much more when you look at it with an empty brain, without thinking. It's well, what is it? And for me, if I evolve that star to still the same star, but I've written on each corner, I'll have to read it because I can't remember off hand. We've got invert, divert, pull, push, flip, spin. So what if you drop the story? What if you drop the need to know the story through the audible side? Does that mean, everyone can have an opinion? Is anyone right or wrong on what the story is? It's like, it's ever evolving when it's a symbol, but the language is so defined, it keeps us locked in. So if you invert it, spin it, pull it, flip it, stand in your head, look at that star, it's going to be perceived differently every time you look at it. There's new insights, like an artwork. So what did I say here in the middle? I wrote, story of complex knowns dimmers the light from one flowing as they're stuck in the known. So we're trying to put everything to it. So I'll just show you those. There's little different ways to represent that star. If you deconstruct it, reconstruct it, stand on your head and look at it, or whatever, there's different ways. So the first one I've got fresh and stale, like it's, when you're pulling it apart and dissecting it, it's fresh, but it's still attached to it. There's still a bit of staleness. When you fully pull those stars apart into two, which, was one Solomon, was one David. I don't know the background of those texts. I'm not really a religious person, but I didn't even know they had anything to do with those stars, to be honest, until I started drawing it. So the separation, when we pull it apart, make two stars, whether one star of David, one star of Solomon, or both of each, or both or none, doesn't really matter, but there's a separation there in that context of those stars now. And that separation, wow, it's unknown. So there's some clarity there, but also a lot of confusion, a lot of unknown. And then if you flip them around again and get the stars pointing to each other, it's like the ego and the oneness pointing at each other, causing staleness, going nowhere, just two sharp edges trying to push up against each other, and all the expansions at the back, they're ready to take off. But loggerheads trying to get in there, trying to contextualize how to get into that centerness. And then you look at them, transpose them, the two star into a triangle. Yeah, I don't know about transpose on top, but there's no points of separation when they're sitting on top of each other. It's like looking into a glass window and what's behind it and what's in front of it, it's all there as one. It's all contained there. There's no, so, and to me, when you dissect it, this can bring a cycle of raw and war. So the raw, it's so, it's undefined. Freshness, the war this is how it has to be. I've got to know why it is. I've got to know how it is. The raw is, this is it. The good feels as good as the good, and the bad feels as good as the bad good. It's just like acceptance. the rawness is, this is how it is. I don't have anything to judge it by anymore. But when you start trying to work out how it is, going around those, it's like you create a war. It should be like this. It needs to be like this. I need it to be, and it's this cycle. And we go into the raw and the war. So, and then I sort of come to it like the center. It goes, I actually forgot why I've drawn that, but it all points back into, it comes out of the black. It's all perception. All that triangle got so many possibilities. It's how one chooses to perceive it. But if nobody keeps, it's almost like this, it's the Star of David. It's like, here it's a triangle pointing down, here's a triangle pointing up. So you can stay here with the known and stay there with the known, but you can go from known to unknown and not collect information. It's not trying to work it out. So keep it moving, keep it evolving. It's almost when it's flickering like that, back and forth. All these different possibilities are just that, but they're just observed. They're not grabbed. So, and then out of that, the Star of David, I put behind that, it's a triangle. And as we go through life, if all these stories, different possibilities of the stars, of the atmosphere, the pull, the spin, the diversion, the push, the flip, the invert, all that is, we can put down to daily life experiences. And we can own them, or we can accept them and just move on to the next point and the next point. So the unraveling, yeah, it was brought out. So back in the center, the whole time that unraveling is going on, all those points, it's like it's putting a pressure on this diamond within us, like a diamond behind our heart that's ready to shine. But it'll never shine in light until we know it has all possibilities. And then while we get bogged down with negatives, or perceived negative possibilities, then that diamond's going to get, the pressure's going to get harder and harder and harder. But when it does go, it'll go. But in the meantime, we're back in that star like inverting, in, out, in, out. It's a star, it's a diamond. It could represent so many things. But if you look here, I've written unraveling into more unraveling. So the despair could lead to repair, but also lead to bliss. The bliss to sorrow, the sorrow to bliss, the sorrow to joy, to joy to joy. But it all gets down willing to deconstruct, not hold on to the knowns, let them go. And I thought I wrote something else. So yeah, it's like this pyramid, the star has, is the pyramids in Egypt, are they up there or are they down there? Do we know, or they are overlapping? It's like this need to know gets us lost on just being what is, and moving to the next. It's almost, I wrote something else down, but I can't think of it. Yeah, so it's almost like in order to reconstruct, we first must deconstruct. That's like, instead of trying to go up and have all that high and reconstruct and be the new, maybe we need to look at deconstructing before reconstructing, like letting go of the new to be the new. I wrote in some of these ones here, the fresh, the stale, all the polarities, the confusion, the clarity, the ego, the oneness. And here it's just transposed. Like it's all one, really, unless we have a defined meaning. So getting back to that defined meaning where I said at the start, the unraveling is, yeah, it just led me to that, letting go of the known, just be open to new opens and not be judgmental of it. It's almost like we've lost our visual mysteries to define text, define audio of how things should be. We've lost that mystique in moving. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I hear you. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that Flora told me that you were with her and Lyra at Oman. So a lot of this is making sense to me within context and you coming from Egypt. I hear you because I've had this long experience of being in the symbolic and the real, where there are either that which is mediated by symbol or just going straight into that which is a space where symbols come from. But when you're there, they're not really just shapes. They actually mean something. So it's almost like you are embodying right now what it means to be in the rupture, where you're not just in a workshop anymore. You're you're in that middle space, and that's really quite potent, actually. So just to listen to you channel from that space is actually quite refreshing. I have been looking at WAR and RAW for a while as well. And especially now, it seems quite relevant.
What's
Yeah.
WRI?
The WAR.
Oh, war. Yeah.
Yeah.
That only hit me last week. It's like that.
Yeah.
That roar.
Yeah.
If we're not roaring, we bring war inside us.
I mean, that drove me to live in the island, to be on coconuts. It was precisely seeing that how can we deal with conflict if we can't start from inside, but it needs to be the unprocessed. That's literally why I lived in the island for 2 years. It was that formation.
Yeah, that just come as an add-on, actually. I don't know if I heard it from you maybe or somewhere, but this, yeah,
it's
the
huge.
rawness is.
Yeah.
How did I learn it? I had some cards, negative, positive.
Yeah.
I'm going, why it's just causing a war.
Yeah.
Within the mind, the negative, positive, the male, the female, all the polarities,
I think that could totally be unpacked to everything
the good and the bad, the emotion, good emotion, bad emotion. It's all like, it just brings a war. But if we just raw, then it's like, just move forward with the raw, Nelly.
Yeah.
It seems that simple.
Yeah, but going to the heart of it, where like a lot of this war is happening because of our need levels, and we're not simple. We should be a lot simpler, and our need levels should be so much more natural. But because people's need levels are so high right now, we're not raw. We're energy maintenance beings as opposed to unprocessed.
It's almost like it's perfectly designed. That you need to be broken to see it, to have that raw, to be raw.
Yeah.
The loop of keep going back to the well and keep getting the same results, and it's like, yeah, it's like it's trying to make something work from other people's perceived people's structures and what life should be about, rather than what you're feeling.
Yeah, there was something else that was in my. I was debating whether to use it as a thesis today. I think it might just come up on the next call. Religious doctrine versus scientific rationalism. There's a lot of rejected knowledge that doesn't fit into religion and science, which in past centuries were the reason why secret societies, new age communities, psychedelics, and esotericism arose, because there wasn't that middle space to accept wisdom that would erupt from inside. So that when we do see something like inner dance, where there's a lot of truth that emerges in our experience, a lot of these wouldn't actually be represented in the sciences yet, because a lot of scientists wouldn't dare go into what's already quite in the norm for what we're going through. So it's like we're alive now, where this emergence can happen, where truth can be like having emergent properties. But this is partly why we are in this process together, because together, what was in the past deemed unacceptable, non-scientific, let's say, or non-religious, they are actually the more powerful space for wisdom. So coming from that nothingness, where there seems to be like, it could be opinion, it could be subjectivity, but somehow within intersubjectivity, within because like, what is true, right? What is truth? But then our resonance knows, and when we share that resonance within community, we actually know that something quite raw, quite deep. It can also start to systematize itself, so that we can bring this to schools, we can bring this to hospitals where there could be openings. But then there needs to be this long adjustment process, because if we hurry up too fast, we lose that connection. So going into this really deep space, like you're in particularly, you're not filtering anything. When I listen to you, it's just coming through. That needs to be validated and honored, which in the past was actually pushed away. In Australia, I would understand the sort of battle, the war natural people need to go through, because there's so much control mechanisms, there's so much border control, and this tendency to how do you know that that's true, but then through resonance, you have to stand for that and not feel yourself needing to be invalidated because it's not within the religious doctrine or the scientific methodology.
Yeah, no, I get that. There's a lot of political correctness, which is actually quite it's baffling.
So you can,
that's
yeah, you could just imagine where I'm like presenting inner dance in a framework to the world, and it needs to fit in somewhere, but it just came out of nowhere. But the fact that the processes that are happening across the world, they're spread out, they're quite effective, meaning they are doing what they're doing, but then to create an epistemology from that, where this can become a practical thing at one point. It's yeah, we're in between this now. Okay. I'd like to hear from others, if anyone else would like to yeah, hold something shared between us. and then we can close soon if in case like you need to set off into your own sleep modes or other work modes. Yeah. So yeah, I think maybe we can close soon. I think everyone's more or less in an absorbing listening space. Maybe Fanny, you can help me co-host. And oh wait, we have a recent addition. We're closing, but then someone just came in. Okay, so let's go into work modes at one point in terms of the playlisting for those who are interested in creation. We can open up some extra calls this month if you have interest. I don't know if you're interested in it, but we are getting some requests from other groups that they would like to go into that. One possibility is that we can just share more playlist folders with you. Say, just to open that up. We're quite careful with this, but then again, it is all up to your capacity. So this is just my drive, and a lot of this would be shared. So if I open this folder, these would be the ones that I would be confident that I constructed over the years that I would find shareable. These are ones that are built entirely out of synthesizers and digital technology. These ones are very narrative based, so they hold very deep stories within them. And then yeah, just starting with those, I'm happy to share these. And then there's a whole lot of different playlisting systems that are being constructed by people from Europe, people from the US. I don't know about Asia. So if you were wanting to construct, one of the ways to really learn to do that is to listen. It's like when you take things in, there's a deconstruction that happens. And then through your creation, that undergoes a reconstruction process. So you can either try to construct from a vacuum, purely from your essence or your space, but one way to do it is actually to study different examples that's global in nature. Is it something you guys find interesting? And if yes, is it something we would go into? Like, yeah, Brendan gave a thumbs up. You guys could maybe word that out. Other than Brendan, like what would be your questions regarding this? And is it something interesting for you? You guys are really quiet today. Val is raising her hand. I'm not on a grid, so I can't see everyone. Yeah, go ahead, Val.
I'm going to be brief because I didn't want to talk again to respect the space for others, but I have something that I really want to share and ask because it's also new to me and I'm allowing, again, the energy to show. So before coming to the Philippines, I went to Atlanta and I had 2 sessions. What I did differently, well, I always get prepared in center before doing this work. I consider it pretty sacred and develop always a space for it. But I don't know if it was a little longer, if it was a place that I had lived 25 years ago, whatever, no point of view of what it was. But what happened was that I was able to tap into the energy of each of the 2 groups and actually pinpoint what playlist would be beneficial for each of those 2 groups. It was fascinating. I mean, just talking about it brings me back to the space. So the Friday group, it ended up being all women, and in a meditation I took completely like visualized, saw like so much pain of the heart. So it was like a heart-based playlist, that was completely changed from what I had thought I would share. Oddly enough, some of the people that were on Sunday changed last minute to join that Friday. So it was like the just insane group that had to live that playlist. And then the Sunday group was a harder energy, a more abrupt, more like I knew it was going to be more force, more
Mm.
pain, but not pain with the pain that the Friday list, pain like galactical, like explosion.
Which playlists did you use?
The Friday is in the one you don't know, like that I
Mm.
worked with actually Oscar,
Mm.
and the Sunday was the one that you and I played around with for Dubai.
Mm.
And you remember which one? Yeah,
Mm.
it was spot on. I mean, I cannot tell you how it was for me to live what was going to happen before it happened, and how the feedback of both days was exactly what came down. And I just I mean, if anything, I just would like to share this in a way that it's just beautiful
Mm.
to be able to not just wait for that moment, but to see
Mm.
even in the spur of the moment, change it up. And in fact, I repeated a song. I went back and extended something. I lowered something, and
Using
it was just
the DJ app.
uh,
Using the DJ app, you did that.
I actually just on the spot was moving around my songs through the format that I had it. I had
Mm.
already fixed it up, but just you know, a repeat mode, little simple things that did it.
Mm.
But I just I
Mm.
am in love of allowing the intuition and the love to unfold with ease and
Mm.
joy,
Mm.
and the outcomes that are coming without
Mm.
expecting any. So I just wanted to share that and
Love
hopefully
it.
cause some
It-
inspiration.
There's something about like pre-knowing and post-knowing, or precognitive or post-cognitive, where if you know the playlist or the songs really well, it allows you to channel, because all of those tools that you use, they hold a structure. Like that's why I love the programs that we're beginning to use as well, because like in this training, for example, after I demonstrated how to work with Logic Pro, people started asking for the raw files for how African clockworks or falling sky were constructed, because they said they wanted to recreate that playlist according to how they might perceive it. But the thing that I love the more about it is you can actually see how the vibrations are layered together. So when I send that over, I have a visual of how the autonomic nervous system's time perception would rise and fall. Um, so I make it a point that when I use something, I know it really well. It could be just a song, or it could be a whole playlist for that matter. And that allows for an intuition. A lot of people think intuition is really just coming out of nowhere, but intuition is often coming from whatever is embedded in us that could provide an automatic, non-thinking way of doing things. So no matter how much we try to get away with filters, we're still going to come through the soul choices that we make, that's going to enter or unravel through space and time, because we're not actually the other person. We are what we are because we chose to be it then. So whatever we establish as tools, resources within our person, that's also going to unravel. So the process of learning, sitting with things, growing really, really slowly, even as a deconstruction is happening. Okay, so let's welcome Carly. I think Carly just came in. Did you just come in? We wanted to say hi as well, in case you wanted to share anything. because then we're about to close. Yeah, okay. So I think this has been good. Fanny, are you there? Could you help me with this? Because I'm not a good closer.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, everyone. I think this is a really amazing beginning. I really love the part where we start to playlist slowly, so I'm very excited about it. It's kind of like a flow and a structure at the same time. So really, Carly, yeah, it's okay. Really looking forward to see where all of this is going, and also to view the next call this week, which is I guess gonna go deeper a little bit into all of this. So if you want to,
Also, I guess, Fanny, if people wanted access to some of the playlist folders for them to just ask within their six respective groups, so then it would be shared from there rather than
yeah,
you everywhere.
yeah,
Mm.
it's easier to go back to your local or regional trainer, so it's not spread out to everyone. So we can really share, like we kind of have to keep a little structure on this as well to make sure that nothing gets lost in translation or the web. So thank you, everyone. If you want to unmute, open your camera if you feel like it, say hello in language and say goodbye at the same time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
So-
everybody.
Gracias.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Hooroo.
Bye, Adrián.
Chao, chao.
Val, gusto
See you again
verte.
soon. Bye.
Igualmente.
Bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.